Welcome to Engineer's Workshop. So about a year ago, I did a Thanksgiving shop update to talk about the progress that I made on this building from the year during 2019. And even though with the pandemic and the monkey wrench that's thrown into everybody's lives, made quite a bit of progress on the building in 2020. I mean, heck, this time last year, I didn't have power. I was waiting for Virginia Power to get me hooked up with single-phase service. So we have that and a number of other things that we did. I will take you on a walk around and talk about the highlights. The workshop property kind of borders our house, but I don't have direct road access. So to go to work there, I have to go down my drive, occasionally wait for a train. Sometimes I wait for the train twice, depending on the direction of it, and then pull into the driveway of the shop. Virginia Power was kind enough to give me a brand new pole here at the end of the service, very tall, and they ran the 3 phases underground. You can see the original transformer which they abandoned in place. That was a 3-phase transformer, 480-277. And what we've got is 3 boxes here. The one on the far left is an actual single-phase transformer, 400 amp. And the other 2 are just empty boxes. Now there's a live phase coming up into each one of those boxes. Those 2 are just empty, and then that one has the underground service running over to the building, to the meter panel here. From the meter panel, I come out into 2 electrical panels. I brought my service into 2 200 amp electrical panels because there really isn't such a thing as a 400 amp single-phase panel. And then I started running some circuits off of that. I have some local light and a circuit running across above the the girt over to another set of lights over the workbench. Yeah, I forgot to mention that I'm using this lower girt to have the electrical conduits and the compressed air line run around the building. I have a drop just past that building column there and a paint station set up about 25 feet from the compressor. And I have a VFD mounted for the Quincy air compressor. The VFD gives me an idle speed and a high speed. So clustered around the incoming electrical panels, I have everything that utilizes electricity. We've got a stove for heat treating. We've got the sandblaster, the compressor, and there are some conduit stub-ups that go into the floor and provide me a means to get to other locations in the building. On the far side, there's some conduit that come up at those building locations there. This 1-inch conduit comes up on the far side of the building and goes under the slab back towards the electrical panel, so I can bring 3-phase service up to about 90 amps over to this side of the building. I have a doorway with an overhead structure. This used to be the location for the chip blower at the far end of that. I just have some firewood storage here at the moment. I'm assuming this was the conduit for the blower, which goes back into the building somewhere. I have not traced this out to see where it comes up in the inside. On the outside of the building, I have this overhead structure. Used to be where the log deck for the incoming logs came in about, I don't know, maybe 6 feet off the ground, and that doorway into the building is 25 feet wide, so you could pass logs up to 24 feet or so long into the sawmill operation. This is looking at the north side of the building. There were 2 sliding doors on this corner. One of the doors was obliterated when a Category 0 tornado hit the building a couple of years ago. Just tore that door apart, which was 12 feet wide and 17 feet tall, made of 3-inch square tubing. There wasn't a piece left together. Every piece of tubing, the welds were ripped apart. All of the panels that were screwed to the face of the door were crumpled, and it was scattered clear across this property and the neighboring property. Coming into the building through this doorway, you can really get a sense for how big this building is. It's 50 feet wide and 125 feet long, and has about 17 feet of sidewall height. So very well suited to setting up a machining and fabrication shop. Here are all the panels that I salvaged from the door that was destroyed by the tornado. I have two pieces of W6 by 20 I-beam that are about 20 feet long. I'm going to cut these in half, which will give me material for 4 jib cranes. I'll be mounting jib cranes on up to 4 of these building supports, and I could set up a machining center around each of the building supports with a jib crane capacity of a half a ton to load and unload things, you know, big heavy chucks or the work pieces as I need to. And I have a video on installation of this 3-ton trolley. It's a Yale hoist manual with a trolley and then a 25-foot beam that allows me to unload a trailer or to disassemble a machine. I could run back and forth under this one location and utilize the lifting capacity of that trolley. This cart is how I plan to get big machinery into the building. I used it to get the Skinner engine from Mike Beck's place, 1/8 of a mile down the road. It is so heavy. I can't even roll it by itself. It's amazingly stout. It could probably hold 20,000 pounds of equipment. It's got solid rubber tires, kingpin style front axle. The whole front axle swivels when you shackle it to a tractor. But I'm going to utilize this to bring in new equipment and unload by the 3-ton hoist and trolley. In no particular order, moving around the building clockwise, I have the Monarch Lathe disassembled and in the process of being worked on. I have a set of steel sawhorses holding up the bed and the headstock. We have the Skinner steam engine, which I recently moved off its cart to make way for a piece of equipment coming in. This is heavy, about between 5,000 and 6,000 pounds, I would estimate. There's the bed of the lathe, which is a 16 by 54 engine lathe. I have a workbench, a lot of lathe parts in storage behind it.
Got a good deal off Craigslist, a guy with a lot of shelving. So I went there, it was $2 a piece, and got 120. For those of you who are going to count, there's actually 102 here. 18 of them are at the other shop. But these are stamped heavy duty. They're 2 foot by 3 foot, and they have a fully boxed front and back and double rolled side edges. So we'll build a little mini warehouse out of these. Hopefully never have to buy shelves again.
Here's my sliding door that's still intact and my empty space where the door that was destroyed. I believe I'm going to wall that in. I'm going to build 12 feet of wall and then I'm going to replace this with a roll-up door to have access to bring a truck in, bring it full height. In the back wall I have 7 feet of missing building panels that just were never installed when this was a sawmill, and then 12 feet on this end. 2 doors, my son's tracker, and then some storage area for building components. There's a lot of steel in this floor. This track was for finished boards coming off the sawmill, and this track in the floor was for the actual saw carriage. Both of those converged on a point about here. And all of the 6-inch pipe stub ups were to elevate that saw carriage track above the floor. There's a 3-inch conduit in the floor going back over to the side of the building. This was the power for the main saw. It's probably a 200 horse electric motor. And the location of the actual saw blade, you can mark that based on all of the holes in the ceiling for when it would throw a sawtooth up through the ceiling of the building. In the third bay, I have storage for most of the components of a large 54-inch Mershon Resaw, which is here. I have a video recovering that item. This weighs almost 8,000 pounds fully dressed out. And it's a belt-driven, power feed Resaw with a tilting set of bed rollers so you could saw bevel siding with it. Originally driven most likely by a flat belt because the patent dates on this are in the 1895 time frame. I have some shivs, some motors, the upper wheel of the bandsaw, another tank for a 60 gallon horizontal compressor, also from post-World War II era. Got a tower edger, 30-inch, for cutting rough sawn boards to a fixed width. A little bit of lumber storage area. Most of that lumber is not mine, just storing it for a friend. Got the hay wagon, tires from the Ford. Got the F-350 dually. Still have to get the engine squared away on that. It jumped the timing chain. Big doorway over here that has to be enclosed, about 20 feet by 14 feet. In this corner I have lumber storage for another friend. Those are probably 60-inch wide slabs, 3-inch thick of red oak, being air dried. Got my son's Spitfire project, my son's 63 Thunderbird project. And look back out the doorway, another doorway that has to be enclosed, 25 feet wide by 12 feet high. Floor is in about the worst shape of anywhere here near the little office structure. There was probably some kind of piece of equipment sitting here, and they never really poured or leveled this floor very well. I've got this wooden office structure that I tacked my whiteboard to. Right now it's just storage. The bottom edges of the wall panels have rotted in a lot of cases up past where they've attached to their little angle block. I have a fix for it, but it's going to be time consuming. I've been advised that the skylight panels should be replaced. They're fiberglass, so we're going to put steel panels in place of those, and then for lighting, I'm going to take the top 5 feet of wall and put clear polycarbonate panels in place of the steel. So what I'll do is I'll come up 5 feet on the wall, and we'll saw cut the wall. We'll have a nice fresh edge. Then we'll drop that entire panel down to that upper girt, and then put a clear polycarbonate panel above it. So I'll have continuous lighting up high where nobody can get into it, but it'll bring lots of light into the building. Outside the building, there's a lot of other artifacts of the sawmill operation. There's a big welded structure and some concrete. And this is on the infeed side. I would imagine that this was some sort of an unloading deck for the logs that would come off, and they would be conveyed into the overhead covered area here before they would go into the building. Maybe there was a debarker somewhere in this area here. I started setting up overhead lights for the outdoor shed so that we could work in the evenings if we wanted to do some sandblasting or grinding. And this is just some conduit with 300 watt bulbs and porcelain fixtures, and I used those are actually stovetop drip pans for a reflector. So it's a really cheap and dirty method of getting the light in there and reflected downward. I've got 2 of them. I think I'm going to add 3 more along here. So that'll be 5. It'll be 1,500 watts of light available on the outside. I've pre-made my conduit sections with the porcelain socket, so all I got to do is feed the THHN wire in here and then go up the ladder one time, connect this and make the terminations to extend and add another light every 10 feet. The first 2 start 5 feet from this end and will continue every 10 feet to the far end of this. At the discharge end of what was once the sawmill, this track continues on outside. There's a concrete foundation going out, I don't know, maybe 30 or 40 feet to carry the finished boards. And then outside of the building is a pad that is approximately 40 feet by 150 feet with this overhead structure. Now this was once completely roofed. It had 2x10s or 2x12s running on top of these beams with roofing, and then this was a outdoor drying area for the lumber. And this structure, I sold all this steel to a gentleman, local gentleman, who wants to make a hay barn, and he just hasn't come and taken it down yet. It's been out here for about 2 years. It belongs to him. I'm in no rush to, have it out of here, so it's at his leisure. There's some more concrete foundations for where the finished lumber came out. And a look back at the building at more of the panels that have to be enclosed. Here's most of the 3-inch square tubes that comprised the door that was destroyed by the tornado. I've got a concrete porch area, or an apron I guess you'd call it, that comes outside of these 2 doors. Here are the 2 doors on the west side of the building. The right door I'm most likely going to replace with solid wall, and ideally I'd like to have a roll-up door in place of the one on the left. That way I could pull a truck all the way through the building. And there's a look down the west side of the building with its where the sawdust blower was. Here's a look at the really crunchy roof over top of the porch area, I call it. And then a look at the property. That's Bradbury Road there. We got about, I don't know, 1,000 feet to the back of the property. The high point of the property now has a little shed on it. I'm offering storage for my buddy Pete, who is displaced from his home. Look to the south and to the neighbors. And then the main roof of the building. Well, we're going to see if we can pull out this tooth. That one's successful. The other one is in the steel panel. That may prove a little more difficult. Might have to
I have to get this one going the other way. Yeah. Now we'll see if we can find that. I don't think there are any others. Just holes. So my temporary solution to all of the saw teeth was basically to pull them out, hammer down the where they came through the sheet metal, and just put some patches on. I'd cut half a dozen patches and come up here, stick them down. Just used, I think it's Flex Seal rubber. It's like a fabric rubber, and then sprayed Flex Seal on top of it to temporarily get the building to where it wasn't leaking constantly. I'm not done with them. I still have a few more to do, but I've got 90-some%. And you don't dare step on one of those fiberglass panels, because you will go right through. They're at the end of their life. They're past the end of their life. Look to the south. And that's the old Goodwin Lumber Company there. That's where I'm going to be offloading equipment. It's where I offloaded the Skinner engine before bringing it over here. My incoming power. And my 3 transformers. Well, my 1 transformer, 2 boxes, and then the abandoned 3-phase transformer. One day I'll get 3-phase at the property. I'll get 480, 277. I just don't have any of the infrastructure in the building for it. All that was auctioned off, so I got to get what do you call them? Load centers, motor control centers, all of the expensive parts that go with having 3-phase power. This roof is basically in very good shape. Building dates from the 1980s. This is the structure that was the covered storage for the finished boards. And looking back over the entirety of the building, you can see really how much square footage there is. It's quite a bit. 50 by 125. I hope you enjoyed that shop update for this old sawmill, now machining and fabrication center in progress. I hope you can enjoy this holiday season with your family, either in person or remotely. So until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll catch you next time on Engineers Workshop. Thanks for all the new subscribers and viewers. Take care.